Okay, welcome back to the Writer's Block podcast. And we're so excited to have Becky Kopitsky. Did I say that correctly?
You did. Yeah, I'm
Oh,
very
good.
impressed. I'm very
Okay.
impressed.
We are so excited to have you here. I'm really excited about this topic. You are going to talk to us today about digital products
Yeah.
and why they're a good option for writers and speakers as a business strategy. And so, really excited to get into that. But first of all, would you mind telling us a little bit about yourself, where you live, what you do, how you got into all of this?
Oh, great question. Well, thank you for having me. It's fun for me to be here. So I live in Wisconsin, and we were just saying before we hit record that it is not San Diego, as some other people have the option to live in. It's a little chilly here today, but still, we're very blessed by the four seasons here in Wisconsin. I live with my husband and two teenage daughters, and I have been a longtime writer. So I started originally working in corporate marketing and blogging for fun as an outlet. So I was one of the original mommy bloggers back in the day when that was really a big thing. It was how many of us got started in nonfiction writing. And my career eventually progressed to the point of writing books. After a couple of years of blogging, decided that I was going to write a book proposal, go to a book writers conference. And I did that traditional thing, having the 15-minute meeting with an agent. She liked what I had to offer. She signed me the next week, and we had a book contract within a few months. And I've been writing ever since. So it's really been just God's provision, I think, in his direction, but it certainly wasn't without its ups and downs. And so I learned throughout my writing career that there are a lot of expenses involved in maintaining
Mhm.
a writing ministry, a writing career, and especially when I started adding traditional publishing expectations to that mix. I was expected to be representing well on a website and to be growing my social media, and all of those things cost money. Email marketing platforms, website platforms, all of it. I, at one point, had hired a social media manager to help me because I still had two young kids at home at the time. And so my kids, I mean, they're still at home for the time being, but a little more independent now than they were then. But even so, we're always juggling multiple things, right? So, how much of it can we do ourselves? How much do we need to outsource? And it was costing me money. And I realized that the book sales weren't covering the costs that it took me to establish this writing career, this position of being a person of influence in the Christian mom community. So I had to figure out how to earn an income from it. And I went full into digital products at first, actually, as a test, a little bit of a test. I thought I'll create this small product, I'll run some Facebook ads to it. I took a targeted Facebook ads strategy course. And the first time that I opened up a $19 product through Facebook ads, I earned $3,000 in profit that first month
Wow.
from a $19
Amazing.
product. And I
Yeah.
thought, wow, maybe there really is something to this. Now, Facebook ads have gotten wonkier since then, but there are a lot of different ways to market and sell a digital product. And I realized that I had all sorts of content I was already sitting on, and I could repurpose it into a digital product and sell something that was serving my audience well in addition to my books. The books almost gave me credibility, right? Like, I am a real author, and so I also have these other products. But eventually, the sale of the digital products overtook the sales of the books. And so I've since been creating courses, and people eventually asked me, how did you get involved in digital products? So I started doing a little coaching, and now it's my primary source of income is coaching on how to create and sell digital products for people who are in the same seat I was in, which is we want to write. Maybe we want to publish books. Maybe we just want to be bloggers, freelance writers, whatever it might be. There are a lot of ways to generate income from writing, but digital products are one that you can literally do while you're sleeping. It takes time to create the product, but once you have an evergreen funnel running, I can earn money while I take my dog for a walk and come home and look at my phone and see how many sales I got. And that to me is we're not celebrating the fact that it's money. We're celebrating the fact of what that money can do. It funds my writing ministry. It allows me to continue writing books if the books aren't going to be the income generator. And that to me is important because too many writers lose steam because they can't afford the burdens of the expense of their ministry. And then the world misses out on their voices, and that's sad. We need more positive voices right now, writing into the world, speaking into the world. And so I'm very passionate about digital products in particular, but just in general, the idea of helping Christian content creators, writers, to monetize the work that they do so they can keep doing it. That's my passion.
I love that. And there's so much to unpack there, because as I was listening to you, I was thinking about how you mentioned you got on the bandwagon early on with your writing and blogging. And I'm wondering too, like, it feels like for writers today, like there's a bit of a cart before the horse kind of thing that we have to do. Like you were saying, there are a lot of expenses
Yeah.
that we incur when we're trying to build a platform, to get a book deal, to make money. So it's a
Yes.
lot of money that goes out initially without much, if any, in return. And then and so it sounds like what you did, and I know things were different back in the day, like you mentioned the Facebook ads. I'm so curious about how that works today, but that is kind of a necessary thing for writers to build their own kind of, I don't know, self-sustaining platform in
Yeah.
order to continue to do their writing.
Yes,
It is,
it's true. And yet, as authors, whether we're traditionally published or indie published, you have to have established your audience for your own book anyway.
right.
So,
Yeah.
what I love about digital products is that they allow me to get paid to build an audience. Essentially, when I would put out a Facebook ad, and you can still use Facebook ads today, they still are very effective. They're just harder. They're harder to manage. And then there are other ways to use Instagram, ManyChat. There are a lot of DM strategies on Instagram, for example, which is free unless you're using an automated tool like ManyChat, which is only $15 a month. You can say comment XYZ below and I will send you, and then you just send them to be this page to sign up for your product or the entry point to your funnel. There are a lot of ways to take the audience that is paying attention to you and capture that one moment in time and turn them into either an email subscriber or a buyer so that now you can build a long-term relationship with them. And you are selling a product at the same time you're growing your email list. So that's what makes it self-funding essentially. And then if you can show a publisher, I built this audience of 1,000, 5,000, 10,000 people who will be interested in my book, but they're vetted buyers because they've already purchased something from me, or they were already interested in something I had to offer. It's how they got on my email list. That is an added incentive to a publisher to say this person knows who her audience is enough that she could convert them to a buyer in order to get them on the email list in the first place. So there's a lot of value in growing as you sell, so that
Mhm.
essentially it's not just put out a lead magnet and get a an audience of people who may only be interested in something for free. If you're selling as you are growing your list, eventually what you're going to have is an email list of people who are vetted buyers, meaning you've already proven to be willing to pay for your content. Therefore, they will be willing to pay for your book.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. So it becomes like your writing and your ministry and your business. It becomes like this in-house cottage industry.
It does.
Right? Because you're doing all of these things, but it is moving you and your written work and your words forward. I mean,
Yeah.
that is the goal. And that's who we are on this call, is we're writers. We have words that we want to share. We not aren't necessarily, maybe inclined for towards business, but could you talk a little bit about that whole idea? Because you've been traditionally published and then you've also built a business. There
Yeah.
is that need for writers to do both, build an audience in order to get published, at least traditionally speaking. So,
Yeah.
what are your thoughts around that? Do you feel like your experience with building an audience, how has that changed from then? Was it easier when you got started to now, and or vice versa? Maybe with what you've learned, it is kind of a an easier process because you have this product that you're selling.
That's a really good question. I would say Well, first of all, I just want to be really clear that if your objective is to write for yourself, to write because you love it, to write because the Lord has called you to write, whether or not you're writing for an audience, that's a beautiful thing. That's a worthwhile pursuit. Not everyone is called to pursue writing as a business. You can pursue it as a hobby, and it can be 100% fulfilling. But for those of us who want to be published, whether traditionally published or self published, you cannot sell books unless you have readers. And so you need a platform to appeal to a traditional publisher, but even as a self-published or indie author, in order to sell any of those books, if the point is to publish so people will read it, it is on you to find the readers. It's on you to find the readers often when you're traditionally published as well. But essentially, if your goal is to not write just for yourself, but to write for readers, to spread a message that you believe God has called you to spread, then you have to put on a business hat
Mm.
or you will not be able to spread the message. I am actually, in addition to my own coaching business, I'm a business coach for Author Conservatory, which is a college alternative program for young students, young Christian writers, fiction primarily. And we really drill this home for them, which is that if you want to be a career author, you must learn to be an entrepreneur because you cannot separate the idea of having a product from the need to sell the product. So you could have a book, but if you don't have an audience to buy it, you cannot rely anymore on a traditional publisher. And that was the case even 10, 15 years ago when I first started. We were already in the new territory where writers were expected to promote their own books. And I think it's even gotten to be more so. That is the case. So whether indie published or traditionally published, you will largely be responsible for selling your books, which means you have to put on an entrepreneur hat and learn how to enter the space of treating your writing like a business in order to sell the book so that you can generate the end result of blessing people with your message. You want to bless people, you want to equip them with your message. You cannot do that unless you know how to reach the people and sell the product.
Yeah.
So that is why I'm passionate about treating writing like a business. And is it easier? Is it harder now? It's just different. So I would say when I started 15 years ago, social media was different. You could very easily, as bloggers, we could very easily share a link to a blog post and it would go viral. Facebook no longer supports the idea of spreading external links. So eventually we learned we would be penalized for moving people outside of the Facebook platform. So it's not as easy anymore to generate a lot of buzz on Facebook by sharing your blog posts. So we have to go about things in a different manner. You have to create groups where you're interacting with people. You have to post content that maybe is just advocating for your message, but not pointing them to a link outside of it. Instagram, you can't use external links unless you're in stories. So if you're using Instagram, for example, there are other ways through, I mentioned a tool called ManyChat where you can automate responses, but you have to have something to send them to on the back end. So you have to have the business hat on, which is where am I going to send them? I'm going to send them to a page where they can sign up for my email list so that I can talk to them and build a relationship. So the strategies are different in terms of how we use social media. The opportunity is definitely still there, though, to grow an audience. You just have to use more business-minded strategies today than you used to have to, 15 years ago. Even 5 years ago, Facebook ads were easier. They've gotten, quite a bit wonkier, a little harder to manage, but I still have many colleagues who are selling their books, series of books, indie published through Facebook ads and generating up to $1,000 of profit a day. It's not unheard of at all. It just, these are people who have to desire to treat the writing as a business.
Yeah, and it sounds like what you're saying too is a bit of a mindset shift, right? Like you
Yeah.
have to kind of and probably a little bit of soul searching involved too, because you have to decide, am I in this as a hobby? Is this mostly for me or is this mostly for others? And so do you agree? Do you think it's that simple to kind of get down to the difference between a hobbyist versus somebody who's looking to establish a platform and send their words out?
I do. I think it's as simple as that core question, and there's no right or wrong. You are not a more important or more valuable author if you're writing for an audience than you are writing for yourself. But you have to also acknowledge the fact that if you're not willing or interested in building an audience, then you will likely not sell books. So if your objective is to sell books, to get your books out to many people, you have to put on the business hat. If that's not your objective, if you're writing because it fulfills you, I know people who want to write a memoir simply for their family. If you're writing because it's meaningful to you, if you have a small group of people interested in your Bible studies, whatever it might be, absolutely be the hobbyist who writes for a smaller group. There is just as much value in that. But you won't sell books unless you put on an entrepreneurial hat, right? If you can't build for yourself an audience of people who are going to buy, then you are likely not going to sell. That's just the industry today.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really good. That's really helpful to kind of clarify maybe what people's objectives are as they enter into the whole writing world, because there is it's a whole new ball of wax when you're in there and you're trying to build something. So when I want to get to, there are a few questions in the chat, but I wanted to get to why digital products? And do you still feel like there's a lot of life left in digital products? I
Mm-hmm.
think we've seen them in for many, many years. And probably most of us here are familiar with some of the ways in which to do that. But maybe just speak to it in general.
Yeah.
Like what are your thoughts about digital products? Do you think that that's still the wave of the future for Christian writers?
That is a very good question, Kara. And what's interesting to me is that I would say, based on the industry that I'm involved in, that I see yes. However, it's always fun when I get some cold data to support that. And just a couple of weeks ago, I use a tool called Kajabi. It's my website tool. I use it to build my funnels. Maybe some of you are familiar with it. And Kajabi released its annual State of Creator Commerce report. They put out every year, just a few weeks ago. And its data, I made some notes because I wanted to share this with you. It's very interesting. The data is showing that digital sales are growing, not declining. That was the projection a few years ago. It was projected by 2025 we'd be at a certain number of billions of dollars, and it is continuing to grow. So their data said that digital download sales, so a PDF download or something like that, digital download sales are up 20% across the content creator market over the last year, which is very good news for those of us who are selling digital products. And they also calculated that the top 5 ways that content creators are making money right now outside of social media, right, which is the one way that you can monetize social media is to create sponsored content, right? But we're not talking about that. We're talking about other ways to monetize outside of social media. The top 5 ways that content creators, writers, speakers are generating income is through educational content, meaning courses or guides, coaching and consulting, which is another aspect, memberships, which is essentially a digital product, merch, which is fun, right? I mean, all sorts of options there for physical products, and digital downloads, once again. And I smiled because those are all the things that I teach in my coaching business. And I to see that those are the ways that people are leaning in now to make money, particularly over the last year. I think there is a bit of a hike because there's an increasing wariness over social media. We saw with the TikTok ban, as much as that was short-lived, the platform was, back on in a day. It still caused a lot of content creators to be very wary of where they were building their castle. And if you're
Mhm.
building your castle upon someone else's territory, they can very easily reclaim it and give you no access to it. Therefore, digital products are a business you create yourself. You create off of your own website, or you deliver yourself. You're not reliant on an algorithm. And so for me, it continues to be a safe place and a wide open space to enter into as more and more people are not just in the space, but more and more buyers are coming into the space as well. So what I like best about digital products, there are many ways to earn an income from your writing. Selling books, you can be an editor, you can ghostwrite, you freelance writing. There are all sorts of ways to earn an income from writing. But what I love about digital products is that they can be automated and they save me more time ultimately. So I can have an offer when I create what we call a sales funnel, which is basically the automated series of web pages and emails that get set up behind your digital product. My job becomes driving traffic to that initial landing page, which is the first entry point of my funnel. When I figure out how to do that well on a regular basis, that's when I open up my time to be able to spend more time writing the next book or coaching my clients or watching a movie with my kids. because I'm not trading time for money anymore. That's what I love about digital products. I've done it all. I've done freelance writing for years and years and years. Done all sorts of service-based businesses related to writing, but they're all trading time for money. You're charging on a per project basis or a per hour basis, which is fine. That's great. But digital products, I literally, the first time I realized the power of this, and I'll explain this more on Thursday when I do a training, but there was a day when my husband and I took our dog for a walk, came back home, I checked my phone, and I had made $180 in sales from a small ticket digital product during the half hour, 45 minutes it took me to walk the dog. That's the
That's a
power of
great
digital
feeling.
products. It's a great feeling. And it
Yeah,
was, and I'm not saying there wasn't work involved. There's work involved in creating the product, setting up that funnel. There's work involved in setting it up. But once you have a winning product for sale and you know how to drive traffic to it, it opens up my time for other things. That's why I love digital products.
I love that idea and that concept too.
Yeah.
What do you recommend for people to start? Because you mentioned 4 or 5 different options, including coaching and
Yeah.
that kind of thing, and digital products being one of them. What do you think
Yeah.
is like beginner level for
Mhm.
writers, and what kind of tools, what kind of tech do writers need to know?
Great question. I usually advise writers to start with one simple product. It doesn't have to be an online course, especially if you don't like to be on video. It doesn't have to be a course. It can be a guide, a digital PDF guide. That was my first product. My first product was a product, it was essentially a Bible study, but it was for parents and siblings called Let's All Get Along. About how to, how siblings can get along with each other, harmony in the family. It was maybe a 20-page digital download, and it was content I'd already been talking about on my blog. So if you can repurpose content that you're already talking about into some sort of a how-to guide or a devotional or a prayer journal or something like that, that is of value and solves a problem that your audience has, if you can format that into a simple digital download guide, you can charge more for it than you can for a book. You can charge more for a 20-page digital guide than you can for a 300-page book because you position it as a solution to a problem.
Hmm.
And it can be interactive, however you want to position it. You can position it at $17, $19, whatever it might be. And you can sell that one product, get really good at selling that one product. You don't even need to expand to multiple products. You might eventually have, I have a friend who says that with three $37 products, you can generate $1 million business. And she has. So it doesn't have to be some enormous package. It can be a simple downloadable guide that is related to the topic you like to serve people on, that what you like to talk about. And that product alone can start to generate some significant income while it grows your audience. And as far as the technology, if you're creating a digital download, it can be very grassroots. You can just create something in Google Docs and save it as a PDF and let that be your product.
Hmm.
And you don't need a fancy web page to sell it. There's just all sorts of art and science behind sales funnels and types of sales pages. But all you really have to do is tell people about it on your social media. However you're already talking to your audience, tell them about this new thing and start small. It's okay to start small, to tell them here is what it is. If you're interested in buying it, shoot me an email and I'll send it to you with my Venmo for $19. You don't
Yeah, it can
need a
be pretty
whole lot.
simple.
It can be very, very simple.
Yeah.
It can be very simple. And then if you're going to down the road eventually to more of a complicated online course, there are low-tech ways to sell an online course. I created a course recently for speakers who are looking for a very simple way to sell an online course. You don't need a fancy tool like Kajabi. You don't need all the complicated sales funnels, which actually aren't as complicated as we fear. They are once you understand them. But one of the simplest ways to create an online course is to create just a few videos of you talking at your camera with slides, maybe not. If you like to use Canva, record slides on Canva and then take that video, save it to a YouTube channel, which is free, as an unlisted video, and you simply put the link to the unlisted video on a PDF and tell everybody, here's my module, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Here are all the videos. And you give them the PDF as a deliverable, just as you would if it were a downloadable guide. And that's your online course. So it truly can be as low tech as you need it to be. There are plenty of high tech ways to automate and create and serve, deliver an online course, which is great, but you don't need it to be that. to start
Well,
with.
especially not at the beginning when you're doing
No.
a proof of concept and you're
Yes.
testing things. And having done many courses and products myself, I know how much of a time suck the
Mm.
technology and the design and all of that can be. And so I like the idea. I mean, it would be difficult for me to just do a Google Doc, but
I
because
know.
I think I've been programmed to like make things very pretty and
Yep,
in
yep.
Canva, but
That's what
I
Canva's for.
love that you can do that and that people will buy that. And I think that's really good if you're just starting out to not
Yeah,
spend and spin your wheels
yeah.
with
You don't
all the
have to.
learning involved with creating something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. The key is to know what your audience needs. And so I won't go into the weeds of that right now. We're going to talk about this in the upcoming training, but there's a way to know what your audience is actually looking for and what is actually going to sell. And so if you know what that is beforehand, you're not necessarily testing the concept of the product. You know that what you have is going to sell. Now you get to skip ahead to testing how to sell it.
And that's when it gets fun, I'm sure.
Yes. Yeah.
You know you've
It
got something
is.
good that people are
Yeah.
gonna want.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
Um,
Exactly.
Amy asked in the chat, we were talking earlier about Facebook ads, and outside links. Do you think that the Facebook pages are those pointless? They don't get very much interaction, mostly because we're often putting in outside links. What are
Yeah.
what are your thoughts on that in terms of like getting people into your funnels?
Well, a Facebook business page certainly is not pointless. I would say it's very important if you are trying to establish yourself as an author brand separate from your personal account. I always keep my personal account separate from my author account. I always have. But what you put on it does matter. And for many years now, Facebook has been dinging people for posting anything that is an external link. So if you're posting to, if you're linking to a blog post, if you're linking to an article on a website, whatever it might be, certainly a sales page. If you're trying to do that through an organic post, then yes, Facebook will not show it to many people. It might penalize how many people it shows your next post to. It wants you to pay for that. So it does not penalize you if it's an ad. If it's an ad, that's the point. You're supposed to link people to an external source, and that's why in there that's what you're paying for. But Facebook does not like to give you a whole lot of traction if you're trying to take people off of its platform. And then Carrie, you're asking, can you do a PDF of a part of a book you have already self-published? Yes, absolutely. So anything that you have self-published or not created for hire that someone else owns is fair game for creating a digital product. One of my early digital products was a collection of devotions that was meant to accompany my traditionally published book. All I did was took 30 old blog posts and I tweaked them a bit and I added reflection questions. I compiled them together and I made it into a saleable product. And the benefit there is that you're not just selling the content, you're selling the convenience of the product. You're selling the fact that your customer didn't have to go search through all of your old content to find what you created, to figure out how to put it in a particular order that draws a meaningful conclusion. You've done that work for them. So you're charging for the convenience of it. And let's remember, most people, if you've already self-published that book, even people who have purchased that book may not remember that section. Do you remember every book you've read over, the last 5, 10 years? I don't remember every blog post I've written. So if I don't remember it, my customer is highly unlikely to remember in detail. Therefore, it's absolutely fair game to take something you've already created, take a portion of it, repurpose it into a saleable product for sure.
Yeah, I love that idea. Um, Years ago, it was kind of, I don't know what it's just wisdom, I guess, or industry advice was that you should start with like very cheap products to sell. Like you wanted to keep the barrier to entry as low as possible. And so they were always saying, under $6 or something like that was to be like your entry level product. Do you think that that is still good advice, especially for writers trying to build a platform who may or may not have the numbers to sustain a higher price? I mean, I know there's a lot of psychology with price. Some
Mm-hmm.
people think if it's too cheap, it's not worth it. And sometimes if it's more expensive, it's more appealing. So I don't know. There's all those
Yes.
factors to weigh, but
Yeah.
Do you have thoughts on that?
I do, and I've learned consistently over the years not to undervalue myself. So I actually think most, especially Christian writers, underprice their content. If you want to price something at $3 because you're afraid you otherwise won't get anybody to buy, what you will get is an audience filled of people who are only willing to pay you $3. If you put your first product at $37, you're going to get people at least understand they value your content enough to put $37 in. That's who you actually want to attract. You want to attract the people who value your content enough that they're willing to pony up the money for it. If you only are ever attracting people who only want your stuff for free or only want your stuff for dirt cheap, you are building an audience of people who don't value your content enough. Your bait will determine your catch. That's why many people now, coaches especially, start with the $5,000 package. They don't first offer something cheap. It's easier to earn, say, $100,000 with, $25,000 sales than it is with, hundreds and hundreds of $20 sales, right? So many people start there. If you'll have some sort of a coaching package or a higher value package. As authors if you have content to share and you want to create an online course, you want to create a digital guide. My best seller was $29. It was worth 100. We figured out the kind of the sweet spot is as a spontaneous purchase. A large part of this is where does it fit in your what we call your sales funnel? Is it an entry point? Are you offering it to a cold audience, people have never met you before? Or are you offering it to people who already trust you? The more they trust you, the more you can charge. But if
Hmm.
you're trying to break into a cold audience, you'll do it better if you put yourself at a lower ticket price point, which is typically between $17 and $50. Under 50 is kind of a spontaneous purchase. But I wouldn't put it at $3. I wouldn't put it at $7. You don't want to gain a whole list of people who are only interested in paying you less than what you're worth. And if they don't have enough skin in the game, they won't engage. So they're going to pay $3 for a guide that they never read. They're going to pay $7 for a course that they never take. So then you're actually doing your customer a disservice by charging something too low because they're not going to value it enough or feel the pain of the purchase enough to actually engage in the content. Your whole purpose of creating the content and sharing the content is to achieve a transformation for the reader or for the customer. And if you charge not enough money so that they feel as though they need to get their money's worth, they will not engage with your content. They'll forget about it. It'll go to that proverbial digital shelf where nobody ever opens it. How many courses have you bought or online resources have you bought that you've never opened because they were so cheap it didn't really hurt your pocketbook that much?
Hmm.
But there was somebody on the other end of that product who really had something to teach me and wanted to transform my life with it. If they had charged me $100 versus $7, you better believe I would have opened it up, right? So there's
Yeah.
that too. If you really want to serve people better, sometimes you need to charge more.
Yeah. And sometimes you just have to be, I mean, some of, I don't know how smart this is, but sometimes I think about, I should be a little bit uncomfortable, right? Like there should be a little bit of like, like I hope you want to believe in your product, obviously. If you have doubt whether or not your product is worth $37,
Yeah.
that's one issue. But if you know that it's worth it and you want to, get in a higher catch, like you said earlier, like maybe you should feel just a little bit of pause.
Yeah,
Do you agree?
I do. That's usually a good sign that you're in the right place. That
Yeah.
if you feel a little uncomfortable putting a price tag out there, it's probably a better option than you feeling really good about it. There's
Yeah.
something about having a no-brainer price, um, but it should not undervalue your content. You can position something as no-brainer in all sorts of ways. You can do price anchoring, which means comparing it to the actual value, right? So I can charge $100 for something that I can prove to people is actually worth 500. I'll still get paid. I don't have to charge $7 for it. If I can show them this is actually worth 500, then $100 is an authentic steal, right? And
Yeah.
I still get
Yeah.
paid 100 versus 7 or something like that. And the idea of is your digital product worth $37? That's where talking to your audience and understanding their pain points helps you to understand the value of the transformation. You are not charging for the number of pages that your guide fills up in the printer. You are not charging for the number of modules that you have in an online course. You're charging for the transformation that you're providing for a customer. You're charging for the problem that you're solving and how that eases their life. Do they value your solution enough to pay $37? Do they value your solution enough to pay $300? It largely depends on the solution that you're delivering to them and how you talk about it. Your marketing messaging is so key here. And I'm not talking about being dishonest, not at all. I'm talking about a heart of integrity that wants to show people that you're offering them something that is an answer to their prayer. For the right customer, your product is an answer to their prayer. And you are easing something that even you don't understand because you're not your ideal customer anymore. You know enough. You've been through the problems, you have solved the problems, and now you're sharing with people how to solve those problems. So you can't even identify anymore with where they are. So if you were to say, I wouldn't pay $37 for this, of course you wouldn't. You're not your ideal customer. You're already over here. But the person who's
True.
over here,
Yeah.
it is worth that to them if relieving the pain or delivering the desire is going to be of such great value to them that that price tag will look to them like, I will gladly do that in order to achieve the result or the transformation.
Yeah, I love that. It's so good because you are helping people. Like this is a service and you do have to keep that transformation in front of you. And that helps you just, I mean, my background is in copywriting, so that really helps you in positioning your product and helping
Yes.
identify pain points and all of those good things that you have to get good at as
Yeah.
you're putting your work out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
I want the ladies are into this and they're asking a lot of questions. So I would just like to invite you guys to unmute and ask Becky. Maybe Becky, you could start by telling us a little bit about what you're going to talk to us about on Thursday.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you for asking. So Thursday, we are going to talk about just an overview of digital products, a few reasons why they are a smart strategy, a business strategy for writers in particular. And it goes back to what we talked about earlier, which is, do I want to approach my writing as a business or am I going to approach it as a hobby? If you're going to approach it as a business in order to remain sustainable, then I'm going to give you a few solid reasons for why digital products are a really smart strategy for you, especially if your goal is eventually to write books or to write more books, whether traditional or indie published. So we're going to lay the foundation there. And then I'm going to have a special section where I'm going to show you not necessarily, there's so much how here that we're starting with the entry point, which is how to identify exactly what the right product is for you. So there's actually, I have a low ticket workshop that I sell called Pinpoint Your Product. We're actually going to be going through that workshop live in the training as a part of this workshop on Thursday. So that's the part where I'm going to give you the how to actually get data from your audience that helps you determine what is the right product for your audience, what's the right product for you. And there's just, of course, not enough time in an hour to go through all of that. Now, how do you create it? How do you set up the sales funnel? How do you price it? Those are all things that I coach on an ongoing basis, but you are going to have a really solid understanding of how to determine the right product for the right reasons and why it's going to be of great value to your audience or to the audience that you want to build. Because there's something else to consider. Maybe right now you're serving moms of 3-year-olds, but you don't want to serve them anymore. So we're going to talk about how do you establish a new audience by researching what that new audience is looking for. Because again, your bait will determine your catch. So what you start talking about will start drawing those people to your ecosystem,
Yeah,
essentially. So
I love
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Helpful.
Other questions. Amy would ask, how does someone prove the value? Something called price anchoring, which is basically you will say, okay, I have 5 videos. If you were working one-on-one with me, this training would be X number of dollars per hour. And this product, for example, and then the guide that I give you alongside the course is actually a $30 value, but you get it free as part of the product. It's sort of that price anchoring where you show them the value of if they were to either purchase all these things separately or if you were to work with me one-on-one, this is what that would cost, but I'm giving you all of the same information that you would get for X number of dollars here at your disposal for a portion of that. And then if down the road you want to upsell to something like one-to-one coaching, you can, but a lot of people don't need that. You can serve more people with a lower ticket product, and then there will be a percentage of your lower ticket audience who is interested in going the next level with you. So that's another way that you can continue to increase your what we call your average order value, is by offering something that's in that 27, 37, $47 price point. And then eventually somebody says, I really love this. Now I really do actually want to work directly with you. Or is there more where this came from? And you can expound on the entry point product, the entry solution with higher ticket products for the percentage of your audience for whom that is an answer to prayer. And that's what I've done. I really started with lower ticket products and grew to higher ticket. I still have more fun delivering lower ticket products. I just love creating them and selling them. So
When you when you have an idea of a product, what does that process look like for you? Is it something like you mentioned earlier, repurposing content, which I think is a great
yeah.
idea? Are you normally doing that? Are you creating things from scratch? How long does it take you? That kind of thing.
Really great question. So, first of all, I make sure it's something that my audience needs and wants. I know my audience pretty well now to be able to discern what it is they're asking for, but I will go back to the starting point, which is what we're going to talk about on Thursday. Actually, do some market research if necessary and figure out what it is they're asking for. But from there, I have so much content now. I'm typically always repurposing something. So I can draw on, I may redesign it. I may take portions of a training from here, portions of a training from there, um, maybe draw a different conclusion for a different reason, but I almost always am repurposing at this point and then creating things fresh. So I might take some written content and turn it into a video. I might take a video script, turn it into a written guide with some design elements or something like that. I am often recreating new variations or iterations of courses. So, for example, I have an entire program that is from A to Z, how to create, sell, and launch a digital product. But then I had mentioned earlier, there was an audience of speakers who wanted to know how to do it without the high tech. So I took the pieces that applied to what they were asking for, took out anything related to the high tech, and gave them a very low tech way of creating the product. I didn't go into all the details of marketing and selling it. I repurposed portions of a larger scale product, created a smaller scale product, charged half for that than what I would for the bigger product, but it met a specific need. So for me, the process is typically making sure I know what the customer wants, repurposing content I've already created in various forms. Again, like I said, it might be turning writing into video, it might be turning video into a written guide. It might be rewriting a video script and re-recording, but I will repurpose until I create, essentially I have an outline to start with. This is so I skipped that part. I do have an outline before I look to the content I've already created. I create a general outline of what is going to be necessary in order to complete this project, same as I would for a book. I've got a chapter outline, right? And then I start filling in the chapters. I'll do a course outline or a product outline, a section outline, and then I'll look to the content I already have to start filling it in. I will create something new as needed, and I handle all of it the same way I would write a book, which is here's
Yeah.
the outline. Now I'm going to fill in all the pieces until it's done. And I'm always in the middle of something. Right now, I'm creating um, some new curriculum for Author Conservatory. And I'm going back to a lot of what I've done in my own coaching business, recreating some of those videos specifically for the younger author students. So we all have a spectrum of what we know, what we have shared in the past, and you can use and reuse it in so many different ways, but we also all have limits based on what we know up to this point, right? So I don't necessarily try to talk about something I don't know. If it requires me doing a whole lot of research to establish myself as an expert, I would rather have experience and that has made me the expert versus doing a bunch of cramming and research to present myself as an expert. So for me, repurposing really means going back to what I already know, figuring out how my audience needs me to deliver it.
That's so wise and so much easier and so much less stress too for
Yes,
you as the creator to just be refining and honing what you already know and making it better
very true. Yeah,
with
very
each
true.
iteration. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
really good.
Huh. Any other questions?
Anything else, ladies? Kathy?
I was just wondering, like with the digital downloads and like the whole AI
Yeah.
um issue of content that's out there, is it do you copyright your things? How do you keep somebody from, buying your product and then reselling it?
Yeah, very good question. And the honest truth is you can't.
Yeah.
People can choose not to be not to work within integrity. And honestly, I actually get that question quite a bit. It's a concern on a lot of people's minds. But I have learned over the years not to allow it to prohibit me from doing what I've been called to do. Technically, if you have a digital download out there, I always have my copyright on it. You could certainly do a watermark of some sort, but at the same time, if people want to lack integrity and cheat and steal your stuff, they're going to do it no matter what you do to protect yourself. So I worry less about those few bad apples and more about the people who are people of integrity who I can teach. And if somebody else wants to take advantage of that, because that is something that is largely out of my control, I just choose to look at it the same way I look at the rest of the world, which is there are some bad people out there making a bad name for the rest of us, but I'm going to choose to engage in the good. And so there are things you can do. You can in the way you deliver your content, for example, you can deliver it under a gateway. The way that I will deliver a simple digital download is via email. So after somebody purchases, they get a follow-up email in which they get sorry, I'm just looking out my window. There is someone at my door, so my dogs might be about to bark. So if we're on the podcast, everybody, listen for my dogs. Anyway, what I will do is I will deliver in an email. They'll purchase. I could immediately give them a page that says, now click here to download. But I would rather have an extra safety down below. So I don't want them to be able to share that page. Could they also forward the email? Of course they could. Could they download the link in the email to the PDF and share the PDF with anybody they want to? Of course they could. But could they also take a book that I've written and make photocopies of it? Yes, they could. I mean, think about it. Could somebody buy your book and share it across the neighborhood without ever paying for a copy? Yes, they could. And is that considered cheating? No. People lend books to each other, right? So would you rather, as an author, have them each paying $15 for the copy? Yes, but the library, in a way, is doing the same thing to us that we're saying we don't want to have happen to our digital products. So I just try to lean into the percentage of people who will, with integrity, understand the value of my content and willingly pay for it. It's a good question. I've chosen to take the perspective that there's so little I can do to control that. I'm not going to allow it to prevent me from making an impact in a positive way for the people who do have some scruples about that kind of interaction. Good question, though. Yeah.
Yeah, and Kathy, your question about AI too, I think you are still paying for a convenience, like Becky said earlier, right? So a lot of the information that we buy, we purchase is not information we couldn't find out some other way,
Yeah.
but we are paying for somebody to curate it for us in a way that meets our needs. And so, yeah, I think AI is a great tool that we can use to help us create and put our own spin on it, right? And make it our own.
Yeah. I have a lot of experience with AI and a lot of experience with creators who are afraid of AI. A lot of parameters that I put in place in terms of how I will and won't use it. But I have clients right now who are I just had a conversation with one who was amazed at, she's a Bible study teacher, a wonderful Bible study teacher. And she had portions of her business that she had created. She has a member group. She has a Bible study curriculum that she'd written. And then she had another piece over here, content she had written. She uploaded it all to AI and said, help me understand how this fits together and how I can offer a cohesive package to my customer. AI didn't create any of the content for her, but created a business outline for her. And she was amazed. She said, for the first time, I understood how I could actually position my business with all of these moving pieces. So there are a lot of great ways that I think we can use AI with integrity, even as Christian content creators. I personally believe that God has given us brains and hearts that can never be replicated by AI. And I think as AI becomes more and more popular in terms of generating content that people are consuming, I personally think, I could be absolutely wrong. Maybe this is too optimistic, but I think humanity is going to shine brighter the more the content that's out in the world is robotically generated. So for me, my books, I will never use AI for my books. Will I use AI for a Pinterest description? You better believe I will, because that saves me a whole lot of time and it's keyword heavy. And if I figure if I would outsource it to a VA, I will give it to AI.
Yeah,
And now
for
what does
sure.
that mean for virtual assistants who are doing copywriting, like you were saying, Kara? Human copywriting is still valuable because you have to know and be able to discern what is good and what is junk. If you can't discern that, if you don't have that skill set, you need to hire somebody who does. And then however they use it, great, let them use AI, but they're going to be the ones who are going to discern what's good versus what's not. It's still so important. Human skills are still so important.
Yes, I hope you're right. I'm banking on the fact that you're going to be right because the
I hope
world
so.
still needs human beings filled with the Holy Spirit to
It
to
does.
give heartfelt
And
words. So,
I have to believe that will make us appear different. And at the end of the day, Jesus is coming back and AI
amen.
is not going to make
Yes,
its way to heaven.
amen. So true. So true. Well, Becky, tell us how we can find you online and follow your work. And if we have questions about some of your products, where can we get that info?
Thank you for asking. So the name of my coaching business is theinspiredbusiness.co, theinspiredbusiness.co. But if you go to theinspiredbusiness.co/register, you will get an invitation to one of my most popular free workshops. It's different from the one that we're going to do on Thursday together. This one is called How to Create and Sell Digital Products Without Feeling Stupid, Salesy, or Sacrilegious. So it gives some more background overview
Love it.
on digital products, and then there's an opportunity at the end to talk to you about my member group. I have multiple courses and programs, but really, I just love to be available for people who are interested in this topic. I love to be a champion for digital products in general because I've seen how they can make ministry come back alive for people who are burdened by the expense of writing. So to me, I'm passionate about it. Whether or not we work together beyond these opportunities is really secondary. I do love to sell my courses. I love to have new people in my programs. But at the end of the day, if I've done anything to convince you that this is a worthwhile pursuit, then I've done my job because I want every single one of us with the Holy Spirit-led message in our hearts to continue sharing that message. And if digital products can help you stay financially afloat, then it's an opportunity to continue doing the work that God has called you to do. Because we were born into an economy, an authentic, dollars-based economy, and that means that we can use it to our advantage for the kingdom, for kingdom purposes, without getting tripped up by it.
That's right. Yeah. There's a lot of freedom there. That's really
Yeah.
encouraging.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Becky. We look forward to hearing more from you. I think we're going to have more questions on Thursday just because we're going to get into the process with
Yeah.
you a little bit more on Thursday. So thank you so much, and we look forward to seeing you in a couple days.
It's been fun to be here. Look forward to seeing you again. Thanks,
Thanks.
everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.